Peter Brantley es actualmente director de la organización bibliotecaria sin ánimo de lucro Internet Archives y fue director de la Federación de Bibliotecas Digitales de Estados Unidos. Pero fundamentalmente su actividad por la que es más conocido es por estar al frente de la Open Book Alliance, que es una iniciativa que se ha creado para defender los derechos de diferentes partes del sector del libro, incluidos los bibliotecarios, que fueron, digamos, los que primero entraron en contacto con Google para esa digitalización. Y ellos han creado además una opción diferente, de acuerdo con su filosofía, que él va a explicar, que es el llamado Book Server, para poner a disposición libros digitalizados, pero con una libertad de elección del usuario respecto de quién lo edita, quién lo distribuye. Por tanto, doy la palabra a Peter para que nos exponga su filosofía y su punto de vista.
Can we have a screen? What is,
you want me to just...
Un punto más. Voy a pediros que os habíamos dado 15 minutos, pero como vamos mal de tiempo, si podéis reducir un poco este tiempo, creo que lo agradeceremos para tener luego un debate. Gracias.
No, it's okay. Yeah, so how to do this? So thank you. And I'm from California, so a little jet lagged. So if I start to drool, it's not because I'm dying, it's just because I'm very tired. So what I want to do is talk a little bit about the digital book market and how it is changing, and present to you some of the conflicts that are beginning to emerge in the market that would help us contextualize some of the things that are happening in the future. So at first, what I want to do is put this in the context of historical changes and what the book has been and what it can be. And I always loved this quote by the critic I.A. Richards, who wrote some time ago, "A book is a machine to think with." And what he meant by that comment was that the book was a product of a social set of interactions, a set of economic interactions, a product of an industrial age. And yet now the book is set to become a wholly different kind of experience, a different experience mediated by networks and by interaction. So the book itself is becoming something new again in a way that I think we have not been able to even imagine even 10 years ago. In the United States, sales of paper books are beginning to diminish year over year by significant amounts. In the United States, most books have dropped by almost 2%. Paper books have dropped, in some cases, over 5%, 2009 to 2008. But in digital, the case is very different. This is an underreporting of sales of trade books. But in 2009, we believe that there was about $313 million worth of ebook sales, 176% increase year over year from 2008. And the first 2 months of 2010, January and February, we have seen sales of 60.8 million, 100% of the sales of the entire fourth quarter of 2009. So sales are beginning to expand dramatically. This is a curve from the American Association of Publishers of ebook sales on a quarterly basis. And you can see the trajectory of the curve is quite rapid. This is another interesting statistic. This is a very new filing from AT&T with the Securities and Exchange Commission for the first time reporting revenue from what they call connected devices. these are devices like the iPad from Apple, which are connected to the network, for the first time demonstrating material revenue by AT&T. You can see this massive zoom. The Apple iPad itself has had dramatic impact. Just recently released, we can see that in the period up to April 8th, over 450,000 iPads have been sold. And in the short 5-day period between April 3rd and April 8th, over 600,000 iBooks were downloaded by users. The Japanese market also is an interesting market, perhaps the largest ebook market in the world, with arguably over $500 million of sales in 2008. These are older statistics. I do not have 2009. In the chart, you can see the red represents mobile access to digital books. PC reading access to books is flat or declining, but mobile growth is zooming again. Manga represent almost 3/4 of ebook market in Japan, and the overwhelming majority of ebook sales on mobile. This is an example of a digital manga in the EPUB format. Historically, in digital books, publishers used PDF from Adobe to represent the page with great fidelity. But increasingly, we're moving to use EPUB, which is an open standard for ebooks from the IDPF, the International Digital Publishing Forum, of which I am a board member. An EPUB file is essentially a website in a file, self-contained, that includes HTML or web markup plus metadata. Apple and Google both endorse EPUB and their provision of ebooks to their audiences. The Amazon format remains proprietary. EPUB also has the great benefit of providing accessibility. And there is a version of EPUB which is DAISY compliant. Additionally, EPUB and the DAISY Consortium, which creates works that are accessible for the visually handicapped or visually impaired, are working to align their next generation formats to ensure continued interoperation. And the board president of EPUB is George Kirscher, who is also head of the DAISY Consortium. This is a very important area for us. Additionally, because EPUB is essentially based on HTML, we're seeing increased use of TTS engines, text-to-speech. Importantly, there are some text-to-speech engines that are open source, like the Festival product, that will enhance this access. In the beginning of the ebook market of the last couple of years, the initial strategy by many companies has confused patrons or users. Companies tended to marry devices with the reading experience and an ebook store. One can think of the Amazon Kindle, a device, and a store, and a reading experience all in one. The same for the Barnes & Noble Nook, and to some extent, Apple iBooks. But increasingly, the trend is to attempt to promulgate the buying experience through the web to make the store availability as broadly available as possible. One of my colleagues on the IDPF board recently commented in a talk that reading devices without network connections were not landlocked, they are landfill. It is so important for new devices to be part of the web, to be able to access web content, that I think that we will quickly see standalone reading devices become deprecated in favor of network accessible devices and mobile technologies. And indeed, ebooks are becoming rapidly enhanced with non-textual media, video, audio, and interactivity. And indeed, some books are beginning to demonstrate new types of narratives that are reader-determined and non-linear. In a recent speech, the CEO of Penguin UK commented on the new kinds of books that his company, like many others, are beginning to make. And the comment was that many of Penguin's iPad books seem hardly to resemble books at all, but rather interactive learning experiences. So there is a pressure already to move our conception of digital books away from packages of self-contained content, single files that are downloaded by users, and moving toward a conception of digital books as a package of networked resources, sets of pointers to digital assets that are housed on the network. There are many ramifications of this change, which is just beginning. Those impacts include ease of mobile access, when users do not have to download gigantic files all at one time, but can download them incrementally. Issues relating to rights manifests in terms of content use versus content acquisition, and content sourcing, contractually obtained artwork or media versus increasingly user-generated content which is incorporated into the broader experience. So this trend then indicates that in a very short space of time, as digital books become more and more prevalent, this move toward the web for the presentation of digital books will stretch our understanding of what a book can be. And indeed, I think that in the future, most digital book experiences will be delivered in browser-based reading engines, not standalone devices. To talk briefly now about the book server project at the Internet Archive, the organization where I work, and a consortium of many open source companies. It is no secret in the digital book market that what readers want is fairly simple. We want to be able to find the books that we want in the formats we can use for the devices and mobile products that we have. The same for publishers, libraries, bookstores, to make available for discovery with accurate information under the terms that they set, the books in as many places as possible. Even the US government, the Justice Department, has commented on the desirability of this critical aspect of accessibility in their filing in the Google Book Search settlement proposal before the court in New York. The Justice Department said, book data should be available in multiple standard open formats supported by a wide variety of different applications, devices, and screens. What we want is a web of books where a user can find a digital book anywhere on the web as it's published by booksellers, publishers, or libraries. So the vision of Book Server, a set of open standards, is to create a new architecture that permits people to find, buy, acquire, and read books from any source on any device using many different kinds of reading applications. This effort was initiated by the Stanza product, which was the first iPhone e-reader application with significant market share. It made finding and buying books very easy for people. In Book Server, The concept is that a user should be able to browse a catalog of books, select a title for more information, make a decision to borrow or buy that book, download it, and begin reading it in a seamless operation. Because we use lightweight, open standards in XML, it is possible to link bibliographic book data with external resources about those books very easily, building a web of products in a new way. Thank you. That is all I have.